All right, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for taking the time. This means a lot. Let's check in on you real quick. How's your heart right now? How are you landing in this space?
My
How do
heart
you
is
feel?
full. I got to say, being on tour is very um, lots of external stimulation and lots of emotions. You know, every day I'm waking up and I'm usually physically quite tired. So the first thing I do is get out and work out and have some good protein in the morning, usually like a protein powder or smoothie or something. And then I get into a day of meeting with people the whole day.
Dude, you were just telling me about your lineup. Yeah. I was tired just listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually we start at the YMCA. We go to the YMCA in whatever city we're in, which is really a great way to see America, actually, because the YMCA is this incredible network of buildings, historic buildings, and people who have like seen every, echelon of life.
Yeah.
You've got like CEOs running on treadmills right next to homeless people working out, And so it's great. We go play basketball, we work out, lift weights. Then we come back and we start with our meetup. So we do a fan meetup at every show, which is sometimes it's a yoga meetup in a park, or it might be at a bowling alley, or there might be hula hooping or basketball or whatever it is. And then I play a few songs. And then we do our VIP meetup, which is a similar kind of thing. We play songs and I do a Q&A. Then we have our concert for a couple hours, and usually I watch a little bit of the support act ahead of that. And then afterwards we play some songs for fans just acoustically who are remaining in the venue, and say hello to people and hear their stories.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's no one that you wouldn't love if you knew their story. And so most of my day, I feel like, is spent listening to where people are at in the world and culture, and where they're at personally and what's going on in their hearts. So to get back to your original question, that I take all that on all day, and 95% of it is beautiful and joyful, and 5% of it's really painful and challenging. And there's some days when I wake up and I'm like, man, I'm not ready to do this, but I've never lost my enthusiasm for it in the 30 plus years of touring. So
yeah.
And we're backstage, in case anybody wants to know, if you hear some extra trains or
in Asheville.
Radio noise. We're in Asheville here.
I'm thrilled for this location, man, to be in your space. This is really cool.
Thank you.
I've been struggling a lot this last year learning about boundaries, how to say no with loving firmness in my life, giving so much of yourself and listening to other people. I mean, you're so great at learning about people's stories. It feels like that's just woven into the fabric of who you are in all of your work. But have you found that you're good at listening to your own story? Has that been a struggle for you at all?
Yeah. I mean, over the years, for sure. I've battled depression and anxiety because of it. But I've learned that as I'm able to let my emotions pass and find ease of heart. It's like my goal is never to
love that
find,
phrase, yeah.
My goal is never to find happiness or to try to create happiness for other people. My goal is always through my music to create ease of heart so that whatever is there can pass through. So an example of that would be when my father died 2 years ago, my biological father. And I didn't really know him. I met him when I was 22, and he was never really embracing of me. He always introduced me to other people as his friend and never as his son. And
wow.
And so there was a lot of pain there. And so when he passed away, it was in the middle of COVID, and he died of COVID. And so we had a Zoom funeral, and because of social distancing, and it's really hard to connect with the people that you love through a computer screen. It's just like, we did the memorial online, and then I closed the screen, and I was like, wow, here I am just like alone. And so I had a lot of emotion involved in that wasn't really coming out. And it was a stressful time, and there was one day when I finally got to go experience a live band for the first time in 2 years, when because due to social distancing, and they had this great banjo picker and this great fiddle player and this great band called the Munchies. And they were rocking super hard, and at a certain point I just threw my hands up in the sky and I closed my eyes, and I felt tears just coming down my cheeks, and I started to cry out loud and laugh and dance and shout and scream and have great memories of my dad and not so great memories. And after an hour of that, I just felt like, this is the thing I needed to sort of like crack my heart open. And there's sometimes when I feel like it's easily accessible, like the emotion is there, and I have someone in my life that I can talk with about, or I can write about it or sing about it, and let it breathe and give voice to it. And then there's other times when I've had like my heart cracked open, and I realize like, wow, this has been in here for a while, and I'm glad it came out.
Yeah. Dude, do you feel like you've always had access to that? Access to feeling the emotion and letting it move through? Or
yeah,
where did that develop?
I feel like I have, and I also grew up in a family that really was emotionally vacant. And that was the family that I was adopted into. And I always felt different because of that. Like that I was so connected to my emotions. And yet the people that I grew up with were really closed in. And part of it was alcohol, part of it was just that was the culture that they were brought up in their families. But they were not really outwardly expressive people. And it was part of what I really rebelled against when I left, finally finished high school and moved to San Francisco. And in the 80s in San Francisco, there was just tons of artists, musicians, and people who were there specifically because they were perhaps running away from something in a situation that they felt, trauma or pain, or just closed off situations, and weren't able to be themselves. And San Francisco at that time was a place where you could thrive being your own weird, freaky self, So.
When you, I'm asking a lot of these questions, by the way, because I personally am trying to figure out how to do some of these things, and I imagine in the work I've done with men over the last 8 years, I feel like they have similar barriers, even to singing and dancing. I've got a lot of hang-ups with singing and dancing. I'm not going to launch into a whole therapy session with you right now around it, but it's like, it's real for me. Singing and dancing is tough at times. And it seems to come really naturally to you. Seems like that's how you process, express, create. You do it day in and day out. Are there moments for you also when you're like, I don't even, it's not coming naturally to sing and dance and to do the thing that you maybe are expected to do? How do you get yourself into the headspace to do that?
Well, I would say that today it comes very naturally for me, but it wasn't that way from the start. And sometimes I do these voice workshops where I'll play the guitar and I'll invite someone to come up and sing. And the way that I do it is I'll just throw like a beanbag, or at the last one I did at the Modern Elders Academy in Santa Fe, I threw a boxing glove, which somehow seemed really fitting. And he randomly threw a boxing glove over my shoulder, and whoever it lands closest to has to come up and sing.
No way.
And
my worst nightmare.
So there was this one woman who came up. She was 75 years old. Her name was Anna, and just really beautiful, modern elder, full of life, energy, curiosity, joy. And when she sat down to sing, I said, "Do you sing?" And she said, "No, I don't sing at all." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." She said, "Well, there was this woman named Sister Solicious when I was 8 years old who told me that I should never sing again." And then when I became a parent myself, I was singing to our baby, whose name happened to be Michael, and her husband said, who was a good singer, said, "Don't ever sing to the baby again, you're going to ruin him." And she first started to just like make sound as I'm playing these chords, like just like singing a note, and I was like kind of coaching her a little bit. Now sing this note. She's just singing so faint, and then I said, now sing your story to Sister Salicious and to your ex-husband. And she started singing the story of how this woman had told her never to sing again, and was like, I said, now what would you say to her as an adult? And she was like, basically went off on her,
yeah.
you know, but through singing,
yeah.
you know. And she's in tears,
wow.
and she's like, now I'm gonna start singing. Like, I always enjoyed singing up until I was 8 years old, and from 8 to 75, I stopped singing. And it is a way that we access our emotions. It's like, you know, when your voice is trembling, or when you feel uncertain, you hear like a crackle, or when you feel really confident, there's like a warmth and like a body to your voice that you don't feel otherwise. Like, the voice is so indicative of where you're at emotionally. And then the ability for your heart and your soul and your mind to be able to like form the words that make sense. Some days we feel it effortless, like we're chilling with a friend, and it's flowing so naturally, and other times you feel like stuck between what our mind and our soul and our mouth are able to do.
Yeah.
And so I really think it's just a matter of for anybody to practice. You know, it's just like any other muscle that we flex. Anything else in life, like, you know, Steph Curry walks up Game 7, like, last second, I got to hit this free throw to win, and then he looks at the bench and goes, "Sorry, coach, I didn't practice." You know, but really finding our voices that same way, and that if we're able to do it in times when it's maybe not so pressurized, like in our house with you know, in the shower or whatever, then it becomes more natural for us to do it when we're with other people or in front of a large crowd.
I want to use that as a chance to transition into family life a little bit, talk about your role as a dad. And my question is, ultimately, speaking of helping people find their voices, like as a father, how did you view your role in helping your kids to find their voices as they, you know, emerged into this world?
Well, I've kind of like the 2 or 3 generations of fatherhood, I almost think. So my son Cappy, who's here today, is 37, and I was 20 when he was conceived. And then I have Ade, who's my middle child, who's non-binary, is 25. And then I've got Taj, who's 5 3/4, almost 6. And so there's like been different generations almost, and different time periods in my life. So when I was 20, I was, first of all, just more than anything scared. Like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to raise this child? How am I going to support this child? And just had a lot of fear around it. And I was telling him the other day that the happiest moment of my life, and I couldn't even tell you what the second happiest moment is, but the happiest moment was when he was born and I held him for the first time, and I just felt like complete ease. Like, I'm not worried about anything in the past. I'm not concerned about anything in the future. I'm just so grateful and excited to see him, you know. And now that he's 37, we've gone through, you know, just basic nurturing of, like, you know, the building blocks of childhood, you know, of, you know, play and conversation and trying to really stoke his individuality and being himself, to now at 37 talking, you know, man to man, but still I'm his father, and trying to like impart some wisdom, but also allow him to make his own choices, his own judgment, and perhaps his own mistakes, and but also be there to let him know that no matter what, like, I'm here for you, no matter what it is. I think that's, like, for me, the biggest thing that a parent can do is let their child know that they're your family, and whatever happens, like, I'm here for you. And sometimes it might not show up the way that you want or expect, because I'll be honest with you, but I'm here to get through it with you.
Do you feel that's your primary objective because of your childhood experience?
I think I've had my father who raised me, Mr. Franti, was the closest thing that I had to like a strong father figure, but he was not like a loving, kind person. He was not a nurturing father. He was not someone I could go to talk to,
right.
In part because of alcoholism, throughout my entire childhood. And I would also add that when he turned 66, he had a stroke. And when he had a stroke, he blossomed into the most beautiful human being. He went from being somebody who had like cynicism and sarcasm, and then nothing, just like silence, and then rage. And there was nothing in between, really. And to being this person who would like completely talk to strangers, he'd break down and cry about things that were going on with him or with other people. He would compliment people. He was kind. He listened to other people's stories. And I had lunch with him one time in my life where it was like me and him alone.
Wow.
Because when you have 5 kids, you just don't do that, There's not space for that. And but it was after he'd come back from his stroke, he was, I think, 68 at the time. And I said, Dad, you've changed so much. And he said, I haven't changed. And I was like, well, like the trombone of disappointment going, wah, 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 And he said, what I mean by that is like, I've always felt this way. Always felt this way. I could just never express it. I could never express it. And it was like there was a stone in front of my heart. And now this stone is gone, and it was like he blossomed. He turned into like a butterfly after 68 years of being in a cocoon.
Yeah.
And it taught me that anyone can change at any point in their life, or that anyone can, maybe not that change isn't the right word, can reveal what's in their heart at any point in life, and that we should hold space for people to do that.
Yeah. Wow, man. I'm trying to relate to how that must have felt for you, to hear those words, and then to have the compassion for somebody. I felt the compassion of like what that would have been like to have that inside of you and not be able to express that your whole life. Yeah. And I'm also seeing the polarity of times in your life when you've experienced the pain of somebody not being able to express themselves, and yet here's this world of you expressing yourself and helping other people express themselves. Beautiful to see that range.
So when I left the home that I was raised in, I moved to San Francisco, I got into punk rock and I got into hip hop. And in San Francisco, I just started doing these poetry events that I put on, and we'd throw underground parties till 4 a.m, and we'd bring in all this metal that we would bang on, and we started this group called the Beatniks, and it was very political. So my voice was like about social activism, and like I had all this anger and this rage. And today at age 58, I realized that expression was really just me being angry at life.
Yeah.
Not really so directed, or the politics of the world wasn't necessarily the cause of my anger.
Yeah.
I just felt hurt, and anywhere else that I saw hurt in the world, I was like, somebody has to be to blame for this, and the easiest target is politicians, the government, corporations, whatever. And that's not to say that activism isn't wrong, and it's not to say that there isn't problems that we should be fighting for. It's just to say that the emotion behind so much of it comes from what's going on inside of us,
totally.
Rather than what's happening on the outside. And if it was really about what was happening on the outside, our empathy would show up as softness, as kindness, as acts of service towards people who need our help, rather than just raging.
Yeah.
And so as time evolved in my music, I started to realize like that I needed to speak to things differently if I really wanted to affect the change that I hope to see in the world. And one example of that was I got invited to play in Folsom Prison on Thanksgiving. And so I go there and I had all these songs that were about, speaking out against the prison system and the prison industrial complex and, marijuana reform and all these things. And I was singing to these guys in prison, and I'm like, these guys are really going to connect with it. And they did, and they danced, and they shouted, and they sang, and they jumped up and down, and we had a really great time. And afterwards, one of them came up to me and said, Michael, I've been in prison here for 22 years, and this is our first time we've had live music.
Wow.
And it was like the walls just evaporated for 2 hours. It was amazing. And I really wish that you would have sung at least one song about how much I miss my family on Thanksgiving.
Oh.
And I was like, here I am thinking I'm doing this really great thing, and completely missing the mark, completely. And it made me realize that music has to be, or my music, the way that I want it to show up is to be able to express the full rainbow of human emotion, so that wherever somebody is at, they can find, again, that ease of heart, so that whatever emotion is in them can pass through. And then people can show up as their best self. And I believe that if I do that, I don't need to get on a soapbox and tell people who to vote for or what corporation to support or anything. That people's own personal moral compass, and they'll find their way of what's right for them. And I'd prefer today to speak to values because they don't change.
Yeah.
And over time, every 24-hour news cycle, there's a new thing to latch onto. And
last night's debate.
Yeah, and it just goes away that quickly.
That's right.
But your values don't.
Yeah.
Like if you believe in supporting and nurturing nature, that's one thing. If you believe in supporting and helping people to have access to healthcare and education and homes and creativity and the arts, then that should be that's your moral compass.
I think your values are known based on your work in the world, based on your art. People could probably look at it and say, this is what I can see he values this based on how he's living. Have you written them out? Do you have your values on the wall? You're like, these are the 5 things that I value. Is that documented somewhere?
Not really. No, I don't have anything that I've personally written out. But I do believe in the power of and the wisdom of our souls to guide us.
Yeah.
And that's a right sound check.
Cool. I actually hope we pick that up. I think it only adds to the quality of this interview. It's perfect. Thank you for staging that.
Yeah. And I believe that when we access our authentic self and just be who we are, that the wisdom of our soul, which is, to me, everything that passes through us that is not from us.
Yeah.
It's everything that comes from, somewhere in universe or somewhere in your DNA or through your ancestors that are speaking and telling us what I need to do right now.
Yeah.
And for example, people say that James Brown is the godfather of soul, and he's able to go up and dance and move and sing in these certain ways and speak about what his passions are through his music. And yet that's his soul. Mm-hmm. He's not the godfather of all soul. He's the godfather of his soul. He's communicating what's in his heart. And in our world, there's so much that keeps us from that distracts us from really listening to what our heart is. And over the years, I found that the ability to find stillness, to look inside, to be able to put ourselves, through yoga, put myself in uncomfortable positions and see what the voices that come up are, so that I can look at them.
Yes.
And then, be able to breathe through them and give them the space to and allow myself to sit with those feelings more. And you know, through all that, I feel like I find my, you know, true north.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The reason I'm here in Asheville, because I live in Austin, is because I'm at a resort called Soham, which is an Ayurvedic week-long panchakarma. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the thing that's been so, well, I would say it's been nagging at me is how busy my mind is.
Yeah.
Being able to be still is the hardest work I do. And I do believe that stillness is a move, but it is the toughest one for me, to actually hear what's going on inside my heart.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question, Michael, that you maybe have never been asked before. That was a struggle, by the way, listening to all your interviews and trying to figure out, well, what's a question that you've never been asked? If there were 3 songs that you've written, that you've performed, that would share the range of human emotions, it would say, like, this is all of what could potentially come through us. What 3 songs span the range of human emotions in your world?
Well, I would say from, you know, just going through a range of my musical career, you know, the first song that I ever had that was, you know, kind of a popular hit was the song Television, the Drug of the Nation, which was all about just what we were talking about. It was all about the distractions of television and how it keeps us from being ourselves. And it becomes a drug to us. And now we have our screens. You know, and as a musician, it's like one of the things that I use as a professional tool to communicate what I'm doing and that we're coming to town, and also as a hotel owner about, you know, what we're doing with our hotel and the retreats people can do. And so it's like this part of my life to communicate. And yet I get sucked into it so easily. And so that's one song, Television, the Drug of the Nation, would be a song from my early days. And then later, the song Say Hey I Love You, which was our first song that we ever had on the radio. You know, after 22 years of making music, I never really had a song on the radio. And and it's this up-tempo, like, you know, summery vibe song, really great sing-along. But it came from a really intimate place, which is when I was a kid growing up, I never thought I'd leave my hometown. And I always felt like I was the weird kid in town and in the house I was in and family I was raised in. And the idea of being the weird kid in town forever just like really scared me and didn't appeal to me. And so I thought maybe through music I'll be able to, you know, travel and see some things. And sure enough, I was able to get into a van and, you know, sleep on people's floors after every show and travel around the country and then travel around the world eventually. And I thought, like, you know, the more places that I go, the more I'll understand. But it was like the opposite happened. The more places that I went, the more questions I had.
Yeah.
And the questions that came up kept being like, how can the world be such a beautiful place and such a painful place at the same time? And how can I have any effect in trying to improve places that I have been? And how can I you know, nurture my soul in a way that I feel happy and find happiness in my life, and let go of trauma and hurt and pain. And so there was one thing that I learned for sure, though, which is that I loved the people that I missed. And wherever I went with music, as much as it was taking me to something that was beautiful and great and exciting and new and full of joy and pain, it was also taking me further away in distance from the people that I loved the most.
Yeah. As
I traveled and spending months and months on the year of the year on the road adds up to many years of being away from the people that I loved the most. And so that's what that song came from, and it became a hit. And that really changed our trajectory of life and music as a professional artist, you know. And then the final song is a new song, which is called I Hope I Come Back as a Song. And it's about one of my biggest fears, which is the fear of passing away before the people that I love the most. And part of that is this, it's a fear of missing out. Like, I really want to see what my kids are going to do when they get to be my age or older. But it's also just sort of an existential fear of like, wow, you know, like 58, you know, I've got, you know, I remember 5 years ago, like it was just a second, you know. Now my child, the youngest child, is 5, you know. And 5 years from now, it's going to go by that fast. And then I'll be 63, and then 73, and 83. It's like, I really don't have that much time.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do with it? Like, where am I putting my attention? And am I putting it into, you know, the news cycle on my phone in the middle of the night when I'm stressed out? Or am I going to put it into my life with the people that I love when I'm awake? You know? And so that's another song. Yeah.
So speaking of people that you love,
yeah,
your son's here, and I thought it'd be cool if it's all right.
Yeah.
Can we loop you in?
Come on in.
To the conversation.
Yeah.
I know this will be a little bit of a Jenga puzzle to
step on it,
but.
Get cozy.
Yeah. Come on over. This is family style.
Family style.
You can just hold that.
All right.
Oh yeah, perfect.
This is nice.
Yeah. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks.
I'll clip it on you.
Okay.
Dude, we had a chance to chat, you know, prior to the recording, and it was awesome to learn about your world and what you're doing with music and meditation. But the part that really, like, I totally lit up when you said it was you collaborating with your dad. And because I was like, well, where did, you know, I asked you something about the soundtrack to the meditation, and you're like, oh, I was collaborating with my dad, and I'm like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So can you speak, first of all, a little bit to, you know, what you're excited about, this passion project that you're involved in, and then what's it like to be, like, I mean, first of all, you're here, you're on tour, you're with your dad, but what's it like to be building and collaborating, sharing life together right now?
Yeah, well, Bali is a really amazing place, and everywhere you see beautiful art, and there's beautiful patterns that are very rhythmic in the way they flow and move. And so being around that really inspired me for creating this musical meditation, because I wanted it to be something where people could flow the whole time with it, and and something where it would be like seamless, and you're working with your breath and you're working with the rhythm, and you don't have to think too much about it. And so I came up with this idea to create a meditation where the breath would move with the rhythm of the song. And I know that when you inhale and exhale at the same length of time, that it relaxes your nervous system.
Yeah.
So
something I'm working on right now.
yeah, me too. So so that was kind of like the basic idea, and I sent my dad like a little clip of it, and he was like, "This is really cool." So then I had like the kind of basic general format of it, and then he was like, "I'd love to help you on this," you know. So we got to get together in the studio, and he made the backing track for it, which was like, you know, perfect, very calming but rhythmic, and really beautiful. Yeah, and then I had some different parts of it, but he helped me turn it into like a story and a journey.
Yeah.
And kind of put it all together, and the thing that I love about it is I'm leading it at these these fan meetups that we're doing. And sometimes I feel kind of nervous to do it, because people will be there, you know, hanging out, just kind of vibing, throwing a frisbee, maybe drinking a beer. And I'm like, is this really the vibe? Are these people going to get into meditation? Because I think for a lot of people, when you say meditation, they're like that's not really for me, or that's too spiritual for me, or, you know. And I think that it has kind of had that vibe to the spiritual community in some ways, where it's like holier than thou kind of thing. And so a lot of people maybe have felt kind of alienated by that, you know. But I've been really surprised that when I've just been like, I'm just going to do it, and, you know, like if people want to get into it or not, and, you know, people will actually, you know, set their beer down and sit and get into it. And the thing is that, you know, we all breathe. So breath is something that every single person can tap into. And so, and we all can feel our bodies, and that's really what the practice is about, is tapping into your own breath and the feelings that are coming up within your own body and your own thoughts and your own emotions. And so it's really not that far out as a lot of people might feel like it is, or, you know, it might seem unapproachable, but that's been another kind of goal for what I was trying to do, is make it accessible. And yeah, it was just really special. You know, I felt really loved being, you know, with my dad. And like, I've had a lot of issues with my voice. You might even hear it here a little bit, where my voice clenches up sometimes. I actually had like a big polyp on my vocal cords at one time. And so that's how I actually got into meditation, because I couldn't speak for a month.
Wow.
And so I was really depressed, and I kind of found meditation through that process. But anyways, I was struggling with my voice a lot through the process of recording. And my dad was really patient, and he kept being like, you know, just do it again, keep trying, you know. And we went through, like, it seems seamless when you listen to it, but we went through take by take. And he was like, okay, you know, let's do it again, until we get the right tone and the right everything. And so that was really sweet, and I really that was a really beautiful experience to have with my dad. And it's kind of like, it's a little bit nerve-wracking recording with, at least for me, like recording with my dad, like, because I don't know how to describe it really, but it's like, you know, there's a part of you that always wants to impress your dad, or like, you know, and so then you're like in the studio, and I'm kind of feeling like, I don't want to mess up, you know. So that was a really, like, just the whole experience of that was really healing for me, the process of recording it.
As you know, our community is men who want to be better dads.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool to talk to the son about his experience of his father. So I have a couple more questions, if it's cool.
Yeah.
One is, where do you remember, and I'm asking these because I think they'd be cool for you too, but where do you remember, and go back as far as you want in your life, or any time period from the minute you're born until now, but where do you remember experiencing and feeling the most love from your father?
Like the earliest memory, or
Sure.
or when?
Those are often very good ones. Yeah.
My dad has always been very like affectionate and very loving, and even though his dad, you know, was you know, kind of more austere.
Yeah.
He's always, you know, hugged me and showed me a lot of, you know, physical affection, and also I guess one way that I've always felt is like when he's helped me with learning different skills, that's been a way that I feel like he shows love, and that I receive love from him. So like, you know, when I was playing basketball, you know, and I really wanted to do basketball, he would pour his energy into me, into, you know, going and shooting for hours together. And
who's a better baller at this point?
That's a good question.
He is.
Okay, all right.
He is. But the older he gets,
you're catching it. You're catching it.
Yeah. No, but he shoots a lot, so he's really good. But I think, and then like, I think working on projects together,
Yeah.
like, you know, now I help him write songs, and so that's a way that we can connect.
I think this is huge, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, what you're sharing is really big, because I think men are constantly asking themselves, are they doing enough as a father? Is what they're doing, does it matter? But building skills, doing life together, where we feel a lot of love when somebody's just like, let me show you how to shoot that shot, or let's just learn together. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that that's how you feel love. And I think that's also attainable for dads to, because I could do that. I can learn things with my kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's encouraging to hear.
You know, one of the things that's been really great for me and at this age is I had a really bad ankle injury, and it's prevented me from being a runner. Like, I used to be a daily runner.
Yeah.
And I've had to walk. And walking is very different because, like, when I'm running, most of the time the voice in my head is saying, keep running, keep running, keep going, keep going. You can do this, you can do this. It's like kind of like a motivational speech to myself. And maybe a little bit of like drifting and thoughts, or maybe I'm listening to music and kind of like going somewhere. But when I walk, I'm not telling myself to keep walking all the time, and I'm really like thinking and philosophizing or interpreting what's happening in my periphery, you know, that's coming through nature and sounds. And so I started walking with Cappy this year, and we would have like these really deep philosophical conversations or really incredible freestyle humor that goes back and forth between us, because we love to, you know, tell jokes to each other. It's constant, daily part of our life. But really also being able to listen really intently to what's happening in his life. And you know, as a child, like, I never saw my dad processing his stages of life. I never heard it from him. Like, that maybe he's concerned because he's losing his hearing or his eyesight, or maybe his knee doesn't work the way it used to.
Yeah.
Like, those kind of physical things, they really make us question everything about our existence.
Yeah.
And or the stresses of being a father, or the stresses of putting food on a table, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I never heard that from my dad. And I hear that from Cappy as a man now, of like the things, the changes that are happening in his life, and it makes me want to, you know, in turn share those things that are happening with me, and here's my challenges that I feel. And that is a big difference, and that would be like one of the things that I would say, like, if I had any like fatherly wisdom, is like to be able to share more with your children at a younger age the steps of my evolution as a father.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I would have known that earlier, you know, and been able to share with Cappy earlier that. And it's something that I'll do with Taj now, who's younger. Just, you know, say, hey, I'm going through a tough day today, or I'm having a time, or here's how life is showing up for me right now. It's different than it was a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 50 years ago.
How else do you guys enjoy life together? What other things do you share, or memories that, when I say like really enjoying life together, what other stories, memories? You're a great storyteller, you know.
So is he. He's amazing.
Yeah. What pops up from just epic, fun father-son memories?
Going camping. We used to take trips down to Point Reyes and Big Sur, and that was always really fun. And
tent camping, or
yeah. I have one memory, but it's kind of crazy, but it sticks out of my mind.
Because you're like, do I tell this on air?
No, it's not too crazy. But one time we went camping and we set out all our stuff. We got there at night and we set out all our stuff, and we didn't eat dinner yet, so it was like dark, but we were starting to cook stuff up, and we had all our food spread out on the table, and then we started seeing like all these little eyes kind of like out in the darkness around us. And then they started getting closer and closer. And then eventually these raccoons were like, they didn't care. Like, they were coming to eat because they smelled food. And so they started getting closer and closer to the point where they were getting on the table. And we actually had to take our stuff and bounce. And like, my dad was like, he had his chain wallet, and he was like,
stop.
It's like using his chain wallet to hit the raccoons away, and like, and also we had
the raccoons,
to scare them away.
Wow.
And then, but they were like jumping onto the table, like literally like taking our food. And also we had, my brother Ade was like an infant or very young at that, maybe 1 years old or something at that time. So that was kind of scary too with him around, but we ended up having to bail fully from the campsite. But another memory that I have is going to Mexico actually, and my dad taking me body surfing into like the big waves. And I remember him just holding my hand.
How old were you, do you think?
Like 8 maybe? And I remember him just holding my hand and being like, we're going for it. And the waves seemed, you know, when you're a kid, the waves just seem huge. And so we'd be like, we're diving in. He'd hold my hand. And we just dive in together, and that was a really cool experience, you know. And I think that's
your energy as you're sharing that story is awesome. Just recognizing your smile and your energy. It's really cool.
I think that's thank you for recognizing that. I think that's another way that like my dad has shown me love is sort of like sometimes like pushing me to take that step past my fear and like, you know, it's gonna be okay, but here, let me go on this path with you, and you can go further than you think you can. You know, and so that's shown up in different ways, but even like, you know, at shows, sometimes he'll be like, Cappy, freestyle. And then I'm like, oh my God, super nervous, you know? Because, you know, anytime that you're in a situation where you're not in control, it can bring up fear. So, but you know, on the other side of that is joy and you know, a new sense of understanding yourself. And so that's another thing I would say, you know, just kind of like encouraging me and guiding me to push past those kind of barriers of fear sometimes.
I want to ask a question that is not a, you answer this as you want. We can do any editing that we want. But as, you know, as kids, because I'm, you know, my dad, you know, he's 78 right now. He's still with me. I can look back and I'm like, there were painful parts of like my life with my dad too. And, I'm asking this out of great reverence and respect, but knowing that in every father-son relationship, there's things that hurt. There's things that are wounds. My dad, admittedly, and I just had him on my podcast, by the way, a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about like his greatest regret was that he worked a ton. He was, you know, he grew up in an area where it was like, I provide for my family. And he even said, I didn't think I needed to emotionally provide for you guys. I was like, I need to put food on the table. I need to show you how to work hard. That was my model. That's what I did. And now I look back and I go, he'll tell me, I think you're doing a better job being emotionally connected to your kids. And so I'm not angry at my dad for that. He did the best he could with what he had, but yet that still felt like a wound at time for me. And I'm wondering, when you look back on your childhood, what are parts where you like craved dad's love and maybe, you know, and you felt it was missing, or like, you know, he yelled at you this one time and that really stung. Like, where did you feel disconnected from dad? And I'm asking this out of great respect, because I think we can learn sometimes from the pain. We can learn from what was missing. We learn from what wasn't there at times.
Well, of course, being a musician, to do it at the level, you know, at the highest level, and then starting from the ground up, you know, it requires a lot of sacrifice, you know? And so my dad was gone a lot on tour, you know, as I was growing up. And, you know, as my dad mentioned, when I was born, he was 21, you know? And so I think, you know, I don't know if either of my parents were really ready to have a kid at that time.
I would have been.
But I'm thankful that, you know, that they decided to keep me, and you know, so, you know, not, you know, my parents splitting up when I was 3, and my mom went through a lot of pain through that breakup, and you know, so seeing the pain that she went through, and then, you know, my dad being gone, and kind of trying to comprehend all that, being like a 3-year-old, was definitely, you know, painful. And you know, when you're a little kid, you don't understand, you know, all the nuances of what's happening around you, and so you just feel the visceral feelings of,
Yeah.
you know, what you're so open to feeling that. And so you know, that was painful. And then, you know, I felt like, you know, when I was like a baby, my mom said that I always wanted to be with my dad, and you know, I really gravitated toward him naturally, you know. And so that was hard. And I created like an imaginary friend called Dadu, and I think that was kind of, it sounds kind of like dad, and I think it was like my way of like, you know, trying to have him be there when he wasn't. So sorry, I didn't think this was gonna bring up emotions, but yeah, you know, so, you know, I love my dad so much, and so it was hard for me being away, you know. And then, you know, my mom had a lot of emotions around everything too, so I was processing that as well, you know, just being the only man in the house, or the only other person in the house with her, you know. So it was kind of a lot to try to figure out being that age. But, you know, being older, I have more of an understanding of it, you know, and you realize that, you know, your parents are humans and people,
Yes.
just like anyone else. And,
Yes.
and you know, and I understand, you know, what it must have been like for my dad, you know, having a kid at that age, and then also, and that being like a surprise, like, you know, it was not planned or anything. So, you know, and I had an amazing, my mom is amazing, so I'm really, you know, thankful for her in my life, and for her showing up and being such a consistent, good parent and good mother to me. And so yeah, that was definitely just him being gone a lot was just difficult, you know. And but you know, the good thing is that we did go on tours, and it wasn't like I ever felt like rejected by my dad. Like he always stayed in touch, and I know that he loves me. And whenever I was with him, you know, he would show me a lot of love, and show me that, you know, and that's why I'm thankful also for this time now. It's like, it's almost like we're getting to like make up for lost time in a way, which is really special. So that's why I crave to be around my dad, and you know, that's why I love being in Bali, and I love being on the tour, because it's kind of like filling something for me that was kind of missing, you know. So that's really the main thing I can think of right now.
I appreciate you sharing that so much. Michael, do you want to say anything?
Well, that's, I mean, being away from you has been, you know, the greatest challenge, and the thing that I, you know, regret the most, really, you know, about my time as a parent of your early childhood, you know. And I always thought, like, part of the drive to do the music that I've done was also like, I don't want to just be out on the road making music about partying or whatever, because I wanted you to know at some point, like, that I was trying to do something that was serving the planet or serving others beyond just making records for the sake of selling records or something, you know. But there's no, you know, you can't get back the years, you know, you just can't get back that time. And right now is a really amazing time. Like I'm really glad that at this age that we have the love that we do. And yesterday we were writing song lyrics together, and we get to see each other every day, and I feel like I grow from you and your experience and what you bring to me, and that's exciting for me. It's like I look forward to wake up every day and I go, oh, where's Cappy? Let's go. And I can do the same. So that feels really good at this stage of my life. And I'm sorry I wasn't there in those years, and I know, when I look back now, I can see how much it has affected you, and I want to spend the remaining years of my life, building that with you, and also with Taj, who's now 5, figuring out a better way to do it. That we have the more means and more understanding and more wisdom about how to be a traveling musician and father.
Thanks for saying that, Dad. One thing that I want to say on the flip side of that, though, is that it's really amazing also for me to see the model of my dad, that he pursued his passion and went for, and went all in on his dreams, and his work ethic, and so it's like, it's one of those things where everything in life, nothing is just like black and white. Everything has the yin yang to it, and so I think there's something and everything is meant to be as it was. I chose this journey and this soul for a reason, and this father and this whole thing. So I don't feel like I feel like there's still like the little kid inside that still has certain pain and certain feelings around that, but the adult part of me can witness that and hold that, but still see like the bigger picture of it all, and and I'm thankful that my father did pursue his passion and everything that's created in the world, and how many lives that have been touched, and so that's also a really beautiful thing, and all the experiences that I've gotten to have because he pursued his path and pursued his dreams. So I'm really thankful for that also.
You navigated a lot of different aspects with a lot of class and a lot of integrity and heart. I really appreciate how you just shared all that. And at 49 years old, for me right now, I'm just learning about the parts of me. I feel like I'm just learning this, and you articulated it beautifully, where it's like I have this part of me that's this child that feels this certain way, and there's also this wise adult part of me that can reflect on this, and you have offered great perspective. I don't know if I would have sat for a year and tried to script an answer for like of like what it was like growing up with my father, and I mean, you articulated that beautifully and honored your dad in the process of doing it. So thank you so much.
Very much. And thank you for holding that space for me to be emotional and be vulnerable. I really appreciate that.
This is probably one of the more special moments. I'm at 450 podcast interviews on this show, and having the two of you in this very real, open-hearted moment is one of my favorite moments. So thank you for being willing to sit here and have this conversation with Dad. I got a lot out of it, so thank you. I want to ask one more question, and then we got to get you ready for tonight, for your show. But I want to talk about the future, and I want to talk about the dream that pulls you forward, or the vision that pulls you forward. So you could speak to just the two of you could speak to your family, but thinking about what you want to create, what you want to build together. We've dabbled in that a little bit, but I'd love to know what calls your heart forward, what you're excited about. Are there trips on the books that you have planned? Are there things that you want to continue to do together beyond the scope of writing, and producing? Just open to the vision of what's to come.
Well, I really believe in, and I'm passionate about making wellness accessible to all people. Yeah. And wellness being a fancy word for happiness, you know. But you know, physical wellness is one aspect of that, but there's also emotional wellness and financial wellness, and there's, you know, letting go of trauma and healing in so many different ways that eventually when you accumulate all those things, you go, oh, you know, I'm happier than I was yesterday. I feel more at ease than I did yesterday, and I'm finding joy and purpose and meaning in my life. And part of that is through music and touring, and what we do like this. We also do our Soulshine at Sea cruise, which is basically a music festival on a cruise ship, but in the morning it's wellness activities, and then there's dancing and music all throughout the day, and DJs into the night.
My wife would love this.
Yeah.
You would love that.
And then there's the work that we do at Soulshine Bali, which is our hotel in Bali, and all the different retreats that we do there. We do probably 100 different retreats throughout the year. My wife and I lead 2 Soul Rocker retreats every year that are all dedicated to bringing this kind of conversation, meaningful conversation, to people who maybe never consider themselves part of the wellness community, or just were into our music, and find a way for them to, you know, sit and have these kinds of meaningful conversations, soul talks, sharing a deep emotion, letting go. And then we believe in balancing that out with fun and with joy through music, and that you can have as deep an emotional experience on your yoga mat in the morning as you can at night with a band playing. And that's what Soulshine is dedicated to. And we're also an organic farm, and we have 3 acres of rice fields. We grow all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and it's one of the things that I never really grew up with, and especially living in San Francisco over the last 30 plus years, didn't have any space to really grow anything. And it's something that I really love is our what we do with our food out there, and creating food.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. And you're going to spend some time in Bali, right?
Yeah.
He's been living there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. I'm loving it. Yeah.
We talked about, one of my best friends took his family and lived there for like a month one summer, and we've talked about going, my family, and just living there for a month.
Yeah.
But I've heard so many great things about it.
Yeah.
I love that. And do you surf?
I've tried surfing, but I wouldn't say I surf.
Okay, all right. The body surfing,
like to.
by the way, the body surfing story, because I was just in Hawaii a couple weeks ago with Tiger.
Yeah.
Dude, we had the best time body surfing.
That's
All
awesome.
the things. You know, just free in the waves with our bodies, no surfboard, no boogie board, no nothing, just body surfing together for hours on end. It was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
I forgot to mention that. It's really great. How about you? Anything you want to add to like the vision and what you're excited about and what you're creating?
I'm really excited about, like I said, getting people into feeling in touch with their breath, in touch with their bodies, in touch with their emotions, and in touch with their thoughts, and learning to be with themselves and calm the nervous system and get to a place of, I think when people are nourished and feel good within and are at peace with themselves, then they bring kindness to others. So with these musical meditations, I want to continue to bring that to people in a way that's accessible and fun, and so that's the thing I'm most passionate about right now.
I'm excited. I'm excited to connect you to some people in my community that are in that space. I can see some great collaborative work.
Amazing. I'm super excited for that too.
Yeah. To both of you, I really want to thank you, honor you, appreciate your time today. It's been awesome getting to know you. That was a surprise. I'm so grateful that we got this time.
Yeah.
Again, true highlight for me.
Thank you.
And Michael, thank you, man, for making time. What a busy schedule you've got. Love and appreciate what you're bringing to the world. And you're juggling so much, and you're caring for so many. But it's truly an honor to witness your work, and so thank you so much. I hope people go listen to the music. I hope they go to your retreat center. I hope they go on the cruise. I hope they continue to support you and your family's vision and mission, and keep collaborating and tying together. It's much needed work in the world. So thank you, and thanks for just being like in my family's ear in the car rides. Like, I appreciate it so much. Yeah.
Awesome. Love you too.
Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right.